we've seen this shift towards corporate supporting their people less, right? Less pensions, less promotions, less money to match market rates, less opportunities for growth, etc. We're seeing this growth in individuals who are looking to supplement their income with a side hustle. And obviously, I am one of these such people because I still work a full-time corporate job. I still log on 9 to 5 and do my work, and I manage a team, and I run a lot of different initiatives and strategies, and I run That Career Coach, which includes the podcast, my book, my coaching clients. It includes my speaking engagements and the resume guides and networking guides and promotion guides that you can buy on my website. And I'm running all of that, and I'm working a full-time job.
Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster.
Hello, my lovelies. Today we are chatting about starting a side hustle. So on this podcast, we spend a lot of time talking about how to progress your career, what are some of the things going on behind the scenes, how to step into work with confidence and work on your communication. But something that we haven't spent a lot of time chatting about is this recent trend of the side hustle. And not saying that side hustles weren't always a thing, because don't get me wrong, they were. But I feel like the interest in creating some type of online business or brick and mortar business has really jumped in the last 5 to 10 years with shifts that we've seen in the corporate workplace. 15, 20 years ago, working in the corporate workplace gave you a lot of security. It gave you insurance. It gave you a high salary compared to most people. There was a lot of upward mobility and progression. And what we've seen shift in the last 15, 20 years is companies moving towards as few people as it takes to solve a problem as possible, which means more layoffs, heavier job scopes, less upward mobility, keeping people in more junior positions. And obviously, I'm generalizing. This is not every single company. I work for some companies that are really, really great at career mobility and progression. I worked for other companies where not so much. So take it with a grain of salt, right? But as we've seen this shift towards corporate supporting their people less, right? Less pensions, less promotions, less money to match market rates, less opportunities for growth, etc. We're seeing this growth in individuals who are looking to supplement their income with a side hustle. And obviously, I am one of these such people because I still work a full-time corporate job. I still log on 9 to 5 and do my work, and I manage a team, and I run a lot of different initiatives and strategies. And I run That Career Coach, which includes the podcast, my book, my coaching clients. It includes my speaking engagements and the resume guides and networking guides and promotion guides that you can buy on my website. And I'm running all of that, and I'm working a full-time job, right? So if you've listened to my podcast for any period of time, you know this because I talk about my work fairly often. But I think it gets underplayed a lot of the time that I am running a full-time business. I have 4 employees and working a corporate job. And what does that mean? So a lot of the questions that I'm starting to get from clients and from you guys in the comments is like, how are you doing both of these? And a lot of that is good time management. So if you didn't watch my time management podcast a few weeks ago, go back and check that out. We'll tag it in the show notes for you as well. But in addition to time management, in addition to having the wonderful support of like my spouse and my family, which of course makes doing multiple things easier, a lot of what it comes down to in starting the side hustle is just doing it. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what just doing it means. Not to steal from a famous brand where that's their slogan, but we're going to talk about messy action. So this is something that business owner friends of mine and I have talked about a lot. It's something that I think doesn't get talked about enough publicly, though it's becoming more popular. And this is this idea that to start a business, everything has to be perfect. You have to have a business plan. You have to have employees. You have to have a bunch of capital. You have to know exactly what you're doing all the time. You have to have a business partner, yada, yada, right? There's all these conceptions of what you need in order to start your business. But I would argue that now in 2025, starting a business is easier than ever, right? And you don't need to have a lot of those things in place, right? So, legally, you need like a tax ID number, right? But outside of that, there's a lot we can get away with not having in place. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in creating that career coach and what that translated for me, and then talk about some things that you can do if you are looking to start your side hustles. So, I started my business formally in 2023. So I've been coaching clients for years. I'd run large mentorship circles and casual, less formal coaching programs, but it was all word of mouth and it was all pro bono. So I didn't have a business. I never taken on a formal client that I didn't know through someone. And my husband kept urging me, like, post on social media. Right now, my business is built with social media as the cornerstone. And I would argue that if you want to start a business in 2025, you need to be prepared for social media to be your job. It just is. It doesn't matter if you're fixing roofs or if you're selling penguin stuffies or if you're coaching or if you're fill in the blank, you are going to have a social media presence. And so I do think that's one of the biggest barriers to entry that people have is they're like, well, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to have to make videos all the time. I don't want to have to make content all the time. But you will, right? With very, 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 very few niche businesses, you will. And even with those niche businesses, say you're B2C or B2B, and you're selling your product to businesses, which means you need less of a social media presence, they're still going to Google you. You're still going to need a website. You're still going to need some type of active social media, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or something. Like, you're going to have some credibility. So that's my quick soapbox about be prepared to make a lot of social media. So in 2023, I start posting my videos on TikTok to begin with. So at this point, I don't have the podcast. I don't have YouTube. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have a Facebook page. I'm just like, I'm going to post it on TikTok. I'm going to see what happens. And I think it was my third or fourth video goes viral and gets 4 million views. Now, this is not the typical process. Okay. So I want to first say, like, I know how blessed and lucky I am that that video performed so well. That was literally the launching point for that career coach to become a business. Do not get frustrated if it takes you many, many, many more videos to start gathering clients. I have a personal Instagram that took me 10 years to get to 10,000. I have a business coach Instagram where I provide business advice that is like very, very slowly growing and relatively new. So it's not going to be a viral post in your first 5 usually. Okay. So I'm sorry that happened to me. There you go. I feel very lucky, but it is what it is. So I start posting my videos on TikTok. One of those videos goes viral and I'm like, well, I need to ride this wave. And this is where I think people don't appreciate the business acumen side of social media influencers. I've talked about this with a good friend of mine because sometimes I feel like I got really lucky. Like, my business started because a video went viral. But I have seen plenty of people have a single viral video and then never go viral again, never build a business, never make any money, never get the followers that they need. And so what I did when I had that video go viral is I instantly created every other platform. Instagram went live, YouTube went live. I made sure that everything was getting cross-posted. I posted that same video on every other platform so that I could start getting followers there. And then I created my coaching intake. So this is where we're going to spend some time today. So when I first started my business, you could book an hour with me for $35. Okay. What I want to share with you is, like, that was way too little. It was way too little for my time investment. It was way too little for what clients were getting out of it. It was way too little compared to the market. But I just kept thinking, like, what if I made $35 an hour? Wouldn't that be awesome? And then I took it up to 75 and I was like, oh my God, it's the big time. 75 bucks an hour, right? No. Anyways, and I met an individual at that time who was also a career coach who specialized in a very, very niche skill set. And he shared with me that his hourly rate was $450 an hour. And I remember being like, oh my God, I cannot imagine charging $450 an hour. Okay, my hourly rate now is somewhat close to that, and we'll get into that in a minute. I was charging so little because I hadn't done any market research. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what people were willing to pay. I'd never had a career coach, so I didn't have any base comparison. And I'm not telling you this because I did all these things wrong. I'm telling you this because it's okay that I did those things wrong. because I was still learning. I was still building my business. I ended up only having those two links live, the $35 an hour and the $75 an hour. They were only live for like a handful of hours, right? So when I launched at $35 an hour, I had 100 people buy an hour with me in 4 hours. And I was like, nope, 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 nope. I don't have bandwidth. I run a full-time job. Clearly, I'm not charging enough. Immediately took it down, took it up to 75, same issue. It was up for, I think, 3 hours. We had like 50 people sign up. I was like, nope, down. So I'm sharing this with you to say that like it is okay to trial and error early in your business. It is okay to undercharge early in your business, not for an extended period of time. Again, we'll talk about that. But like I didn't have a business plan. I hadn't done market research. I didn't know what the right answer was. I hadn't gone out and talked to a bunch of people, but I launched. And while I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I charged that little, I still made $3,500 off that first link, right? I made $3,500 off the second link. So I made $7,000 that first month. And that was more money than I ever expected to make in coaching. It really was, right? I just thought, man, if I could make a couple $1,000, that'd be cool. It was more money than I ever expected to make in career coaching. And I made it in my first month. So yes, I undercharged. Yes, I should have had a business plan. Yes, I should have done market research. Blah, 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 blah. But I did the thing. And those first 150 clients that I took, I learned what they cared about, what kind of questions they were asking, what types of things I would need to do for them, what they were really looking for. Could I solve their problems in an hour? Which the answer was no. What was I going to need to do as a career coach in order to be able to provide for those people? And so if you've ever worked with me and you're like, I can't believe I missed the opportunity to spend $35 to work with her for an hour, it's okay. But I was learning. And so I look back on that time and I've talked to friends of mine and they're like, I can't believe you did that. Like, what a mistake. And I'm like, but who knows if those people would have signed up with me if I'd been charging more? Would I have gotten enough clients to learn what I needed to do to become a good career coach? Like things happen the way that they're supposed to. And had I launched my first program at $450 an hour, maybe nobody would have signed up because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what my value proposition was. I didn't have a program built. So the reason that I'm sharing all of this is if you're looking to start a side business, don't feel like everything has to be in place to get started. Put up a freaking link. Okay. You can build all the other stuff as you go, which we'll again continue to talk about in today's episode, but like just put a link out there. All right. So I put out those links. They don't go well. Then I decide, okay, I need to be more around. I decided at the time, like the $150, $200 an hour mark. That was more reasonable to me. It wasn't $450, which I thought was insane. And I was like, cool, I'm going to launch groups of one-on-ones. So like you could buy a 5-pack, you could buy a 10-pack, you could buy a 12-pack with me. And they were discounted the more hours you bought. And I launched that and that worked really well for me. I ran that program for about 8 months where you could just buy bulk sessions. The reason bulk sessions were so effective for me is because it does take time for me to help you. It takes at least 5 sessions. So even today, I have a 7-session minimum to work with me because I need time. Like I can't fix your problems in an hour. I wish I could. I wish I was magic and I could just genie you, but I can't. So I created a 5-pack minimum, 10, and then 12, and I ran that for 8 months. Was it optimal for my time? No. Was it super easy to manage? No. Did it require a lot of overhead? Yes. There were all kinds of problems with that offering that I figured out later in my business, but I did the thing. And some of my recurring clients that I work with now, almost 4 years later, they are still from that initial bundle set. Okay. So it was worth it for me to get the recurring income that I've gotten over the last few years and to meet some of the clients that I was lucky enough to work with. And again, I'm still learning. So then I go through a training. I worked with a specific program that basically teaches you how to build coaching programs. And I worked with them because I wanted to see how their program worked. How did they onboard? What kind of virtual program support did they have? How did they answer questions? What did their one-on-ones look like? What did their group sessions look like? Like I needed an example to follow. And I went through this program. I followed their example. I implemented it in my business in the summer of 2023. So I must have started my business in 2022. So go back to the beginning of this episode. 2022 is all this stuff happening. Summer of 2023, I launched my full program. And this is going to be a 3-month or a 6-month program. It has small groups, it has one-on-ones. And that was my bread and butter program until this year. So for more than 2 years, I ran that specific program that I built, and I built it on guidance, and it was at a good price point that was manageable for me. It was worth it for my time. It gave me scale. It allowed my business to grow, allowed me to staff up, did a lot of things for me. So I launched that program, and the same week I launched that program, I hired my first employee, who's my sales gal, who's amazing. And she and I are learning together, right? Shortly after that, I hire a VA. My VA is like hands down one of my most valuable employees because they do all kinds of things for me that I just frankly don't have time to do. I hire an accountant and a bookkeeper who are helping me make sure that my business is running efficiently. I hire an associate coach who's helping me with some of the aspects of coaching where like I need additional time, but I don't have it. And I hire my podcast manager because I'm launching my podcast at the same time that I'm launching my big group program at the same time, yada, yada, right? So all of this happens in like a 2 month span. I hire all these employees. I launch my signature program. I launch my podcast. And all the while, I am still building my social media, right? I'm still cross posting on every platform. I didn't launch my LinkedIn until 2025. The reason for that is because I do still have a corporate job. And I didn't want leaders to see it and feel uncomfortable. I needed to disclose my business to my boss before any of that happened. There were like a lot of things that needed to happen in my corporate life before I was comfortable launching on LinkedIn, which again, we'll chat about. So I launch my signature program. I hire all these people, and then I'm figuring out what they do. So here's my biggest piece of advice when you start to hire people in your business. Know what you want them to do. Have SOPs, have documentation, have specific tasks. The big mistake I see business owners make is they hire somebody and they don't tell them what to do and they expect them to be able to figure it out, and they can't figure it out because you know why? They're not you and they're not in your brain. You have to coach, you have to teach, you have to SOP. If you've never managed people in the corporate world, managing a team as a founder is really challenging. Okay. So have SOPs ready, all those things. So I launch all of that. So then that signature program treats me very well until about the end of 2024. And at that time, we start seeing recession indicators. We're doing a lot of layoffs. You've got looming tariffs. Business starts slowing down. And I'm like, listen, I need to go back to my bread and butter, which is like working with clients who really need my help and going back to a one-on-one structure. So we shifted back, and now all my clients are back in one-on-one. Now, these are personal choices. I have friends who run career coaching programs that only do large groups. I have friends that only run small groups. I have friends that only do one-on-ones. I have friends that don't actually coach anybody. They just create courses and they sell courses. I have friends that run businesses where they don't coach, but they have a team of coaches under them who run those coaching programs. There are a lot of different ways to run my business. All right. But I chose what I think works best for me, my soul, what I want to give back to the community. I've said it on other episodes. Like for me, this is like a God calling of like, I do really want to help people navigate their careers. And the best way for me to do that is with small groups or one-on-one contact where I can really support you. Okay. So I shift back, and now we're back in a good business BAU. But all of this journey, at no point did I have a plan? Now, I'm a planner. I'm super type A. I have a list of things on my tablet that I'm going to go do later. But at no point did I have like a fully fleshed business plan with volumes that I was going to go execute, that I had run through and tested with a marketing team. Like, you do not have to have every single thing figured out to start your business. And the reason I share my personal story is because I've had hundreds, people come to me and go, hey, I could really use your help starting my business. I'm like, great, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, I want to do this type of business. I'm like, awesome. Have you created your social media page? I'm like, well, I want to make sure that like I have a business plan in place. I need to talk to people. I need to have investments. I need to do these things. And there are some businesses where that is appropriate, where you're going to have like a really heavy capital investment, for example. But for everybody else, I'm like, dude, start a TikTok. Step one, start social media. Because you're going to learn so much about your ideal customer, about what type of content resonates, about what types of problems they're trying to solve, about what types of things you need to be able to do in your business. You're going to learn so much of that from social media, but you have to start and you have to be part of it. So I'm a big fan of like faceless Instagrams. I follow them all the time just because I think they're aesthetically cool. But if you're running a business, at some point, they're going to want to know the business owner. Alex Hormozy does a great job of this, as does his wife, Layla. Like their social medias, I feel like you really get to know them in the process of getting to know their business, which I think is a key when you're trying to build community. But no matter what you're selling, you need to build connection. I could give a whole list of influencers. I'll probably put some in the chat below, but like Jenna Kutcher, Megan Roop, Alex Hormozy, Layla Hormozy. These are individuals who, yes, they're selling a product. Yes, they are a business, but they do it in a way where you want to be friends with them. You want to connect with them. You want to work with them. And that's what draws you into their business. And so creating your social media is honestly going to be step one. I had an individual this week come to me and say, hey, I want to create this brick and mortar. I want to sell this store. And I was like, great. What's your social media like? They're like, I don't have any. I was like, I would not touch a brick and mortar until you have social media up and running. You need to know if people care. You need to know if people are going to come in. You need to know if you're able to build an audience. Like, you need something in place long before you start getting a brick and mortar. And so social media is like the starting point. And at this point in this era to really start your business, I don't care if it's a franchise, what it is, you need a social media. The second piece is it is okay to test things in the market. Okay. Corporations do this all the time. They do sales, they do price increases, price lowers, all kinds of things. And what they don't do is argue about it in a conference room for 3 to 8 years before they launch it. They just do it. They see how the market responds and they can always change their mind. You need to be willing to do real life market testing. My rates were a real life market test. My program structure was a real life market test. You need to be willing to go out and get feedback. All right. I've had some coaching friends of mine who've offered their coaching programs for free to a few people. Like, hey, I'm going to take on 5 free clients so I can learn what kind of problems they're solving. I can get practice coaching. I can understand what I need to offer. And then I'm going to reframe my coaching program. Cool. I wouldn't do free, but you can do low ticket, right? So this is what is really important. Sorry, there's something in my eye. So this is what's really important when building your business is you have to be able to get out of your own way and go do things. Somebody called this public failing to me once, and I really liked that like you can do all these things in private. You can create your business plan, you can create the structure, you can create an idea of what your social media is going to be like, you can create a brand, you can do marketing colors, you can do all these things and never do anything publicly, and your business still does not exist. So you have to be willing to go out and be public. You need to be willing to go out and do the things, see the market, meet the people if you want to start to grow your business. Second thing is you need to add processes. So I'm a big process person in general. My corporate job involves a lot of like execution. And so when I was building my business early on, while managed by me, my processes were fairly manual, right? I was tracking certain things in Excel. I didn't have a CRM system in place, right? Because I was growing, learning, getting to know the business, how big was it going to be, et cetera. But once my business was growing in steady state, once I was hitting, 5-figure months, I'm getting systems in place. I'm getting automation. I'm getting processes. And then by the time I hired my VA, I'm like, great, these are the processes you now own. They're documented. This is what they do. This is what I need you to run. And then those processes have evolved over time, but you have to have a structure. All right. One of my best investments that I made in my business is when I got my first CRM, I hired an automation expert in that CRM and said, hey, I need you to help create flows for the contract getting sent out, the invoice going out. How do I manage the different sessions I need to have with them? How do I track those sessions? Like, create me a workflow that's going to be automated in this system and create the emails and templates and contracts and files that go with that. It was the best money I've ever spent in my business. She was not very expensive. I think she's great. Her name's Carly Whitaker. I'll, again, link her in the show notes so that you have it because I love her and she did a fabulous job. I've recommended her to tons of people. But you need to invest in automation early in your business. Do not wait until you start to fail to be like, I should probably make a process for this. Like, please don't do that. Okay. Processes in place in the beginning. For me, content is also a process. I pick one day a week and I record all my content on that day. I cannot be recording every single day. That is exhausting for me. I have like 5 hours blocked on my calendar. I record all my content. The day of that week kind of changes sometimes, but I really time block it because otherwise I will burn out. I learned this early. I was making content every single day. And what I found was like on days I didn't want to make content and I was exhausted, like the content's not good. I'm forcing myself into a bad situation. So like batching it, getting a bunch of good content on a day that I feel motivated. Like today was a great day for me. I woke up with like 10 TikTok ideas. I was like, I'm going to record all these TikToks. This is going to be great. I'm going to have them. And then I store them in my backlog. And as days come up, they get posted. Right. And that's something that my VA runs. Again, it's process. So make sure you're putting processes in place. Make sure that you have a plan for like what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. These are all really, really key to making sure that your business is going to scale with you. Now, I had the unique experience that because I am still working my corporate job, I am both the CEO founder of my business and too busy to be in my business. And for me personally, this is the best decision I ever made. Now, there will come a time where there's a trade-off between the two. Let's all be honest here. And in 2023, I thought that time had come. In fact, I gave my notice, and my company was unbelievably supportive of what I was doing. And they were like, hey, we'd rather you keep doing that, keep working for us. Let's find a way to make it work. They were awesome to work with. Again, I know I'm very blessed in that because I have other friends who've been fired from their jobs for starting content. So I get it. But being in my job meant I couldn't be spending hundreds of hours a week in my business. I do not have capacity. And so it was very easy for me to make the trade off of like, hey, I'm going to take less income home, but I'm going to hire a VA. I'm going to take less income home, but I'm going to hire a podcast manager. And those trade offs are some of the best that I've made for my business because things run so much more smoothly. My capacity for how many clients I can take is so high because I don't have to do any admin. Right. And my capacity for how many people I can manage is so high because all of these processes are in place. So create your processes and find ways to take yourself out of your business. If you objectively look at it as a CEO, do you need people or not? Now, if you have 3 clients, you probably don't need a bunch of people. If you're running an online e-commerce site, you probably don't need a ton of people, right? But at some point you do. At some point you hit a scale where you're like, it's no longer worth it for my time to be spent doing this. I need that. Right? Outsourcing sales was one of the first things that I did in my business because it was just time that I didn't have. I could handle the clients, but I couldn't also bring in the clients. I needed to do one or the other. And so being able to sit back out of your business and say, what does my business need? What is it going to need to grow? What processes, what content, what social media presence, what employees is so key to being able to evolve. Right? Now, I want to double back on something we started to talk about earlier, which is like what you charge for your time. When I work with business owners, 99% of the time, my answer is you're not charging enough for this. 99% of the time. Okay. And I think it's really scary for a lot of people. It's scary for me. This is something that I struggle with as well. I have really good coaching friends who charge 15 grand for a 6-month program. I am uncomfortable charging that much money for a coaching program personally. Okay. Doesn't mean that I don't think their program's worth it. Doesn't mean that I don't think my program's worth that. But mentally, I am uncomfortable charging that for a coaching program. Okay. I'm just being honest here. Whatever type of business. So you either sell a service, right? Coaching to me is a service. It's something that I don't have to maintain any inventory for. I don't have to keep a lot of stock. There's not a lot of overhead, but I'm delivering a service. You either have a service business or you have a product business. And a product business requires maintaining some type of inventory. You have more overhead. You have e-commerce channels. It's a little bit different kind of business to run. In both businesses, there is a tipping point for cost, right? Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot in his books, which if you haven't read and you're thinking of starting a business, I highly recommend. I read them far later in my business journey than I wish I had. But when you're thinking of the price point for what you're selling, there is a combination of what is happening in the market and what do you have to do to maintain it. And I had a coach tell me this once and I really liked it. She was like, add up all of your costs, not just you and your salary and what you need to survive, but like all of your employees, all of your technical products. Even though I run a service and I have little overhead, I still have expenses. What are all those expenses? Add all of that up and then divide that by your ideal number of clients. And that's what you should be charging for your service. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much higher than what I'm charging. And this was 2 or 3 years ago. And what it required was I had to get comfortable with charging a higher price point because to make my business run in a sustainable way, it had to be that. All right. The same is true if you are selling a product. If you have fees, if you have to maintain an e-commerce site, if you have to have a fulfillment manager, if you pay logistics, if you have to pay shipping, if you have to pay for XYZ, add up all those costs, add up what you need to make in order to run your business effectively, and then divide that by your inventory. That will get you what you need to charge. Then you need to compare that against the market. Mistake that I do see people make, and I made this early on in my business, is I didn't understand my market. So in the beginning, $35 an hour was awesome. Let's be real. Probably half of you guys listening to this episode are like, oh my God, I would kill for 35 bucks an hour. I get it. It was more money than I ever expected to make in coaching. It was. And yet, when I looked at the market and people were charging $450 an hour, $750 an hour, $1,000 an hour, $300 an hour, I was so below market value that it was insane. And when I extrapolated, what did I really need to survive on? What did my income need to be? I was woefully under what I needed. right, to make this my full-time business. Now, I was supplementing it with a corporate salary, which made things much easier. But I did need to do that analysis. When I analyzed the market, I was like, nope, I'm way too low. Okay. Same with your retail products. You may look at it and say, hey, I only need to charge 15 bucks an hour if I'm going to sell, or $15 per product if I'm going to sell through my inventory. But what is everybody else in the market charging? If they're charging 90 bucks, you need to charge more than 15 bucks per product. Also, your sell through is probably going to be lower, and there's some calculation aspects there. But anyways, so you need to understand, what do you need to make your business viable? And then what is the market charging? And you need to compare those. There are also chances where you may say, hey, I need to charge $10,000 an hour for my service for it to be worth it. And you look at the market and they're charging 50 bucks an hour. You've got a disconnect and you're not in the right business for what you want to make, right? You either need to find a way to scale it, or you need to create a way to franchise it, or whatever. Similarly, on the product side, you may do the calculation, say, I need to charge 100 bucks for each product, and find that the market's only supporting 40. Your products are wrong and you need to switch. These are all things you can do to optimize your product. These are all the things you can do to optimize your business. But don't wait until you've done all of these things to start the company. Stop waiting. And I'll share one more quick story on this. In 2020, I started a business different than Career Coach. And it was a retail product. And I did all the things right. I had a website and an e-commerce platform. I made my social media. I had a business plan. I knew what I needed to charge for every product in order to maximize for my sell-through. I did all of this analysis. I got a one-time investment. I built out this whole fulfillment process. Like, I did all the things, got my tax ID, my EIN, my bank account, all that. Never made any money. It totally flopped. It didn't do many sales. I had an influencer program and everything, just couldn't get it off the ground. And I look back and I wonder, like, if I'd stuck with it longer, could I have turned it around? Probably, but it wasn't something that was going to grow with me the way that I wanted it to. So I ended up shutting that business down only 18 months after we started it in 2021. But I did everything right in that business. And then when I did Career Coach, I just start posting videos, seeing what's happened, put a link up. Would you want to work with me? And the business went so much better because I was learning as I was doing. I didn't have all these aspirations and these targets I had to hit and these numbers in my head and these team members that I'd hired. It was just a learn as you do process. And as I learned, things grew and were evolving. As I learned, I was able to pivot quickly. And I wasn't emotionally invested in the success of any particular launch. And this is the one really bad negative I see with over planning in your business, is you put in all this time and all this effort and you build all these processes, you do all these things before you launch. And then if you launch and it doesn't go exceptionally well, you are crushed, because all of this time and all of this effort has been put into something that didn't go the way you estimated it would. It didn't go the way your business was expected to go. And we crash out and the business fails faster than you could believe. Instead, what you should be doing is learning as you're going, and then everything is an opportunity to get to that next step. Everything is an opportunity to learn a little bit more. Everything is helping you get bigger, better, more accurate, etc. All right. And if you have that mindset, if you're able to take messy action, if you're able to just do the thing, you will learn what you like so much better. Your company may become something totally different. Let's use a huge example. Jeff Bezos built Amazon to buy and sell CDs and textbooks. If he was married to the idea of being a CD and textbook reseller, Amazon would never have become what it is today, right? You have to be able to grow with your business. If you cannot grow with your business is going to stagnate and it's going to fail. My business is very close to hitting the 7-figure mark this year. It's been incorporated since 2022. And I did everything wrong. I launched before I was ready. I undercharged to the market. I didn't have people in place. I didn't have processes in place. I didn't have marketing. I still to this day have never paid for marketing. And yet it worked. So stop feeling like you have to have everything put in place perfectly to get started. You don't. Start your side hustle, do the thing, learn fast, fail fast, and then pivot. Don't feel married to what you're starting with. If you do, you're just going to struggle. So hopefully you guys found this episode helpful. I know it was a little bit different than our normal types of content, but if you guys have any questions about starting your own business, leave them in the comments below. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it 5 stars. Otherwise, come back next week for another fabulous episode.